Hey everybody. First let me start off by apologizing that this is almost 21 hours late. There was a car issue that I had to get up extremely early for, which means I barely made it to bed just after the episode ended. I didn't even get to stay up to watch The Talking Dead. So unfortunately I'll have no insight from that program either. So I do apologize about that. And while apologizing, let me give a first warning that not this Sunday, but the following, the 3rd, I am unlikely to have a new episode that evening. The reason being is that is the day after my wedding, so I'm probably going to be too busy with other things to bother making a Walking Dead episode. I'll still watch it, don't get me wrong, my fiancé and I both love the show. But good for me, yay. Enough of that, let's talk about The Walking Dead. And let's start off by talking about the virus itself. Now, Dr. Supermanian told us that it's probably just a influenza-type bug that attacks rapidly, killing the victim from the inside out, basically boiling them over. Now, he didn't seem 100% true, so I still have my speculation out there that the virus, the zombie virus itself, is mutating, but for now, let's just assume that what he said is the truth, because we sort of have to take the show at its word on this, for now. Obviously, if you die from this influenza bug, your eyes are going to explode as you die, and you're going to have bleeding eyeballs, basically, which was proven true by both Patrick and the other guy who died in D-Block. But what I'm more interested in is the walker on the outside of the gate. And by gate I mean fence, but I'm referring of course to the walker that had the bleeding eyes that Rick saw twice in the first episode. It's easy enough to guess that he was a person before he died, and that bug killed him, but let's speculate for a moment that that's not the case, that he was already a walker before the influenza bug hit him. If that's the case, that could have some very interesting ramifications, because if he was already a walker, then his tissue should basically be dead. Walkers are nothing but rotting flesh with a partially reactivated brainstem, and all it does is give them instincts to feed and kill. So if he got sick after the fact, after he was a walker, that could possibly mean that they are wrong about the virus being a simple influenza bug. By simple, I just mean that it doesn't have directly to do with the walkers. If it does, then who knows what that could mean. That could open up a whole can of shit that they might not be prepared to deal with. Next, I want to bring up something that's actually been bothering me in these 2 episodes, and that's clearing the walkers off the fence. Now, I'm not saying it would be an easy job, or that you could just do it rapid fire, but I am not satisfied with how quickly they kill those walkers. Does anyone else feel this way? I understand they have to line up the shots so that they, A, don't hit the fence, and B, strike the walker's head, but it was really only Rick who seemed to be going just fast enough, and even that was just barely fast enough. I really feel like and I have no experience killing walkers, obviously, I feel like I could kill them faster than even he was. When they were showing Karen and her group killing them in the first episode, I was snapping my fingers, figuratively, at the TV, as if to say, come on, let's get a move on, there's a shit ton of walkers there, start killing them. And they were just going so slow. It really bothered me, and I feel like they could prevent the walkers building up a lot more easily. But it is what it is. And speaking of the fence, we might as well talk about the little girl, forgive me, I don't know her name, but who has the sister, and apparently has a walker obsession. Now, the obvious guess is that it's her feeding the rats to the walkers to, well, this isn't her goal, but to have them build up against the fence. I'm sure she just wants to feed them. I want to hope that it isn't her, because it almost is too obvious, but I don't know who else it could be, so it's probably that little girl. Which would also correlate with her father dying and she being unable to stab him to make sure he doesn't come back as a walker. They made it seem at the time as if it's because it was her father and she didn't want to kill him, but then her sister later on says that she's not weak, that she's just messed up, which is probably true if she's feeding the walkers at the fence. Because you couldn't be weak and feeding walkers at the fence. That's not how weakness works. Crazy maybe, but not weakness. And I wonder now that they've all seen that the rats have been being fed, if there's going to be some kind of witch hunt, and what that'll mean for the little girl. Like, if they end up finding that it's her, are they going to kick her out, or lock her up, or kill her maybe? I know that's an extreme, but Rick is finally starting to go back down that path, so who knows? And when I say going down that path, he's obviously a long way still from being a psychopath with an axe in the prison, slashing through zombies and threatening to kill Glenn at the same time. But we did see him start to kill walkers again, to retake up his gun, to sacrifice the pigs so that the walkers would get away from the fence, and he even acknowledged that he wouldn't stop Carol from teaching her knife lessons to the kids at story time. Which is all very interesting because we now also know that it was sort of because of Carl that he changed in the first place. There is the part where he didn't want to lose himself and become like Morgan, that's true, but it was really Carl who pushed him back over the edge, up the good edge, so that he wouldn't, continue killing and making the hard decisions, as it were. And they really are the hard decisions for him, too. It's as if he knows that making those kind of decisions, the kind that a leader has to make, are going to keep turning him into, I don't want to say a monster, but just to not have a long explanation, a monster. This was shown by when Carl had to save Michonne by taking up a gun near the gate, that even though he apologized profusely and gave a perfect explanation because he was saving Michonne's life, and even had Maggie and Michonne defending him, Rick was still quite perturbed. He wasn't necessarily upset at Carl, but he was just upset at the situation. And speaking of that situation, can I just say that I am disappointed that once again Michonne is hurt? Now, she didn't really act it in the third season, it was basically just for 1 or 2 episodes, and it'll probably be the same. I assume by next episode her ankle will be either better or close enough. But it just subtracts from her impressiveness. She's supposed to be this katana-wielding badass, and she's been hurt enough now twice. Now, I understand that her being wounded helped unwrap the scene in which she was hugging Judith, and that scene basically told us 2 things. One, that Michonne probably had a baby at some point and lost it one way or another. Now, as for what that means, we really don't know at this time. It could be a baby she had before the outbreak even began, and then lost that way. It could be that the 2 dudes who were her pet walkers killed her baby, or who knows what, something in that area. Or it could be that she had a baby that became a walker after the infection started. No matter what, we don't know for now, but it's probably one of those 3 scenarios. The second thing that tells us is that Michonne is crazy. Now, I don't mean full-blown crazy, but she did tell us in the Clear episode of Season 3 that she used to talk to her dead boyfriend. So this is just another reminder that she's a little on the wacko side. And that's okay. All the strongest people seem to have to be, like Rick and Shane, and the governor. In fact, the only truly strong person, and I mean strong in the sense of being able to take care of themselves and others, and, be there when people need them and kill walkers and all that, is Daryl. He's the only one who's sort of grounded still. Even despite Merle's death, he's still keeping himself under control, unlike all the other characters have been able to do. And speaking of Daryl, I'm pretty sure he's fine. I know there's a little worry that he might be sick, especially because he told Carol, when she asked him if he was going to be fine, that he has to be, but I don't think he meant necessarily because of the illness. In my opinion, he meant more because of what he was saying to Rick later in the episode, that he's basically having to act as a leader. He is a steward while Rick takes his break. His deserved break, as Daryl says. And it could be that Rick's return to leaderhood, if that were a word, will affect Daryl in not just positive ways, but negative as well. If Rick truly takes charge again and makes all the decisions, Daryl may not be looked up to as much, especially with the nonsense that's going to be happening at the prison. By nonsense, I mean the story and the horrible zombie stuff that happens, whatever that may be. And that leads us to the end of the episode. Now, there's not a whole lot to say, because most of it's going to be revealed next week. But it does seem like the 2 people, one of them being Karen, which I totally called, by the way, were killed in their cell, dragged to the outside, and then burned. And I do think that's worth clarifying, because it's not as if they were already dead, or already walkers, or already outside, and dead, and then set on fire. No, someone had to murder them in that cell and then drag them outside. That means the person's not only able to set people on fire, but able to kill them beforehand. Now, I mean that as in they were morally able to do that, not physically. I'm sure the scenario will be that the victims were either asleep or too weak to fight back, something like that. Now, as for who the culprit might be, I have two sets of guesses. The first a more intelligent guess, and that is either of the two doctors, or maybe both of them. Now, why do I say that? Because between the time when Karen was quarantined and Tyrese found her burned, there were only two main characters, and by main I mean that they have been given names and had lines, who were not shown doing something else, and those are the two doctors. And Bob's even more suspicious because he wasn't in the episode at all. So it was probably one of them. Those are my intelligent guesses, and there's a chance it was both of them. Being doctors and understanding the virus, they may have teamed up. Who knows? Now for my second guess, I'm going to go crazy and guess that it was Lizzie, the Walker feeder girl. Now there's no real proof, and what I'm about to say isn't even very good speculation, but we do know that she's messed up, as her sister put it. She has craziness to her that includes an obsession over walkers, so I'm not quite sure how that could translate to killing those who are infected with the influenza and burning their bodies, but maybe it does. And I know that's a little insane to think that a little girl could even kill two full-grown adults and drag them outside and burn them alive, but this is The Walking Dead. Crazier things have happened. Okay, maybe not, but crazy things have happened. And besides, there was an awful lot of blood on the ground, as if someone had been dragged quite a lot. Now, there were two bodies, so that would sort of explain that, but still, a lot of blood. If she struggled enough, that may be the reason there was so much. I know it's a long shot, but if it ends up being true, I guessed it. Ha ha.